Okay, now I have these both sewed and on the curved edge, and I'm going to put the noses. The noses is the short seam side, so I'm going to take the short seams and match them up and pin all the way around. I like to especially get a pin on the upper and lower seams, and then as many pins as you feel comfortable with along that edge to keep those nice and lined up. And we're doing, remember, right sides together. I'll pin that, be back. Okay, so the important parts to make sure line up is this straight edge, which is the side of the face. Notice that the shorter side is for the chin and the longer point is for the cheek. Okay, so the little short part here is for the nose and the longer part here is for the chin. That's the important part to remember in just a minute. But anyway, I like to start along the longer edge because we're going to leave a little opening, and I'm going to move my pins to either side so you can see that's where I'm going to stop. Okay, I'm going to start sewing right here. Let's go over to the sewing machine and I'll show you that. I'm going to start sewing, and because this is along this straight edge and I do this little funky funk, I'm going to do the inside of that presser foot for this seam edge. So a little backtack, and forward, and then stop. I'm going to do presser foot edge, seam, all the way around the rest of the mask until I get back. I'll catch up with you over there. Okay, sharing this last corner because I'm going to go back to the inside presser foot width for this flat, the straight edge seam, because I like to have that finished for my elastic. Okay, now you're going to trim those threads and trim all the corners. If there's a lot of material in that nose piece, I like to trim there because we're going to put a paper clip, a pipe cleaner in there. Otherwise, just trim those corners, and then I use a crochet hook to go to that opening we made. Yep, and trim that threads. Go to that opening we left, and I like to stick my fingers all the way through that mask to the other corner, and then I like to catch that corner with my crochet hook and push it through. That way I get a good head start on turning that inside out. And I pull it, pull it, pull it until just barely that crochet hook is sunk, and pull it out. And so that is how I turn it inside out. Now I'm going to turn it inside out and iron it nice and flat. The important part here over at the ironing board is to really get into those corners. You see how that corner is kind of tucked in? I use my pointy of my seam ripper to get in there and lift that corner out so that it's a nice crisp corner, and that's what we're ironing about. Okay, we're ironing to get those corners crisp. We're going to fold in that little gap we made so we can sew over it later. So making sure at the ironing board that our gaps are folded in and our corners are nice and tidy and our edges are nice and smooth. Make sure it's not rolled to one side or the other. I know, use my wet fingers to make sure that edge is rolled out and iron it. I love my little Conair, by the way. Mini iron is perfect for all uses, especially so I can use it on my little makeshift iron board here by my sewing machine. I live in a small house, so I like little compact workspaces that can be left up all the time. And I will share below if you want to make one of these little compact workspaces. These are all Amazon.com items, which I can shop at Amazon because my daughter works for them. All right. And that is what we have. Okay. Now next we're going to get out our pipe cleaner, fold it in half, and bend the edges over so that it's nice and smooth. I like to get a good iron in at this stage because after this the pipe cleaner's in there and it's a little bit harder to get a good iron in. So I'm taking my time and getting a good iron in now. And I'll fold that right side out. I'm guessing that mostly this person is going to wear it on this side, but these are actually reversible, so if they want to wear it on the other side, that's fine. Just don't wear it on the other side after you've worn it on this side. So wash before reversing, I guess, is the key to COVID safety. Okay, and then this side, good iron on that side as well. Maybe even push a little steam jet there. All right, and that's good job. All right, now see how the short seam on this is on this side? That's the side we're going to stick the pipe cleaner in. So let's come back over here and find our pipe cleaners. And I think we'll use blue. Not that it's going to show, but oh, green, okay. And I fold the pipe cleaner in half, twist the edges around, take my tiny pliers and turn those so there's no sharp edge there. And then crimp, 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 crimp until it's nice and smooth. And I like to test it with my fingers and make sure there's nothing pointy sticking out there. So I go round and round and make sure it's nice and smooth with my fingers. And then twist this rest of the way like that. And then stick it in through that same opening we left ourselves. All right, and I like to have half of it each side of that nose seam. Now make sure in this part that you're getting the nose seam. Notice that the pointy side is up and the short seam is the nose seam. So line it up with that so that short seam is centered on that pipe cleaner and you can feel it under there. And push it, push it, push it all the way up to the edge. And I like to put a couple of pins in there once I get it centered. You see it's centered between my two thumbs there. So I like to go to the center and push it nice and tight up to the edge and put a pin in that to keep it so it doesn't, that seam doesn't roll. Okay. And I'm going to put a pin over here as well. In fact, I think I'm going to clip that end. And this end as well. Let's see if I can find another clip there. All right. Yeah. Okay. And now we're going to go over to the sewing machine, and I'm going to go back to my outer presser foot seam length there, and I'm going to start right at the edge and put the edge along my seam there, edge of the presser foot along my top of my fabric. Now at this point, if you have two different fabrics and you're using one contrasting thread in the top and one on the bottom, make sure you have the right side up so that your threads are matching. I am just going to stay on that edge, and to help me stay on that edge when it starts to get to the pipe cleaner, I hold it front and back. Keep myself right on that edge. And taking the pins out as I go and pressing to hold that pipe cleaner in place as I stitch by it closely. And taking the clips out as I go. I love those clips, by the way. I'll put those in there. Those are at Amazon.com as well. Oops, see how I just lifted off there at the end of my pipe cleaner. All right, now I'm going to do that same thing to the bottom edge. You see? Now your pipe cleaner is sewed into that seam. All right, I'm going to do the same seam I just did to the bottom edge as well. And I'm going to use the other side of the fabric just to give you guys a little variety. Edge of the mask on the edge of that presser foot. That edge of the presser foot seam, I think it's a 1/4 inch seam. I just like I adjust everything so I can use that as my seam guide. It's just easy, and it gives me a nice even seam on there all the time, and I like that. All right. Now I'm going to go back over to the ironing board for a moment. And I'm going to press a 1/4 inch over. And here you can decide which way you want to go to that side, or if I want to fold it to that side. It's just a design idea which way you want to go. And I think I'm going to go to this side, just because I think it's probably going to be mostly worn that way, and iron a 1/4 inch. And give it a good steam if you want. Now on this edge, it has that gap, so I'm going to be really careful as I fold that gap, that it folds in nicely without peeking out. And I'm going to steam that as well. All right. And then I'm going to stitch that at the sewing machine. And again, that should fit exactly on the edge of the fabric, and this should be on the inside edge of that side of the presser foot. And just put a straight seam. Now, once again, if you're using a different thread on top and on bottom because of the different fabrics you used, make sure you switch to the fabric bobbin that you're using on the top for this step, because you want it to match, because it's same fabric both sides here. All right, and the other side. Right. things. And so the next thing we're going to do is elastic. Now, a lot of people do use different elastic. I find that the very narrow elastic works really nicely with all kinds of ears, even, I'm guessing, if you have a hearing aid or something else behind your ear. So I use this really narrow elastic. I believe it's 1/8 inch. Okay. And I use my crochet hook to pull it through because it's just easy. So I stick my crochet hook in there, I hook my elastic on there, and I put pressure. I'm pulling against it at the same time as I'm pulling through so that it pulls it through. Okay? And then it's the geometry woman in me here. I make an isosceles triangle. So I make this side, and this side all the same. And a little bit less. And then I, see that isosceles triangle? And then I cut it. And this part can vary depending on whether you're making these for grown-ups or big people or little faces. I just tie a knot in it because most of the time when I'm making it, I don't know what size face. And then I tell people if they want to change that, they need to drag it back out of the, so I'm going to drag this into the casing now so the knot doesn't show. But you can drag that back out of the casing if you need to change the size of that elastic. Alrighty, and that's it. Do that to the other side, and you have a beautiful mask.